Tell us what you saw when you got out to the Dakotas, and of course you got to the camps on the Indian reservation there.
Well, I arrived on December 4th, which that was during the time of the influx of all the veterans. So it was it took a couple hours actually to get in there on the little country roads. I mean, just driving there, it's a really beautiful landscape. It's just sort of a barren but beautiful place, rolling hills, and you're on these little backwoods roads. There was a ton of snow there, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you sort of crest this hill, and there was just this long line of cars and license plates from just about everywhere in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And I was initially struck by how organized it was, particularly because at that time they were accepting all of a sudden thousands more volunteers. And, people got directed to the right places, and they had basically they initiated you really well.
Right.
It was just extremely well organized.
Would you say that you were welcomed with open arms once you got out there? And then what was what was your role really, other than to maybe first of all take a look at what was going on we'd seen on television probably for many months since September of last year? What was your impression, and what was your role?
Well, my role was really just to help out in any way possible. There was a lot of work to do. I helped with building wood stoves, building wood stoves for teepees and shelters. Was helping to build shelters. Really cold weather was moving in at that time, so I was moving a bunch of water, bottled water, into shelters, and it was beautiful weather when I first got there, and then a couple days after, the Dakota winter set in, and it was all of a sudden, minus 20, minus 30 with, 70, 80 mile an hour winds, literally knocking you over when you were trying to walk somewhere, 2 feet of snow.
Right.
So then a couple days I was just trying to help people get out of there. There was a lot of people left because the weather just got so harsh. And at that time, the Army Corps denied the easement. So, it was a temporary victory. And
right.
Since the weather was pretty intense, a lot of people just decided to get out of there. Because, honestly, someone would have died there.
Oh, no doubt.
People had stayed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the Dakota winter is pretty serious.
Hey, let me ask you this.
My role.
Well, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say,
I was just going to say my role was just to help out in any way possible. And
all right.
But the role, I think, of a lot of people that were there, where it was, a lot of the indigenous people, their role was to remain in prayer, and They asked us to remain, how do I want to say, I guess just mindful at all times.
Right.
Yeah, and there were daily actions. People would walk up to, sort of the border between the reservation and the now it's the easement.
The easement, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a bit of that going on as well, but it was really just a kind of a mindful act, a spiritual mindful act.
Right. That was probably a great experience talking with Nick Miller of the Huntingdon area on the Greg Banks Show here on the airnetwork.net and Community FM 94.1. Hey, Nick, let me ask you this. The tribes actually feared that the project would disturb their sacred sites and impact their drinking water for thousands of tribal members there on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. I have a real big problem with the government moves in any situation under eminent domain, if you will, and then, of course, takes what is considered really sacred land. What are your feelings on that? And did you talk to any of the indigenous people, any of the tribes members, to get a real feeling of where they were coming from? And obviously, there was a lot of heartfelt sympathy for them all over the world, because there were protests not just there in the Dakotas, but all over the country and all over the world, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, just in talking with particularly the local people there, local indigenous people, and really anyone. I mean, that the major message was, Miniwachoni, which is water. Water is life.
Yeah.
Means water is life, and water is obviously sacred. I mean, it should be sacred to us too. I mean, as water, we're 70% water. We are water. Life. Water is life. I mean,
even physically,
we're
made
a true motto. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, any kind of disturbance or threat of contamination to water is an affront to the sacredness of our existence, really.
Yeah.
And I sort of wanted to touch on your question. Made me think of the fact that the pipeline was rerouted actually to go through their reservation. Originally, it was going to go north of Bismarck, where which is a mostly white population.
Yeah.
And Bismarck did not want the pipeline to go close to their city because they were worried about water contamination. So instead, they rerouted it through the Standing Rock Reservation, which to me that just screams environmental racism.
Oh, it is, no doubt. I don't know if you're.
It's outrageous. The white folks didn't want it to come through their place. Let's just send it through the red.
Yeah, not in my backyard is usually what happens. And,
right.
Yeah, historically speaking, let's talk about that because, historically speaking, let's figure it out. We're going to put in power lines. And although we're not going to stick it through your suburb, but we'll stick it through, let's take this power line perhaps all through the projects. Those people really don't have much power or authorities. So, again, I think that was the same case there with the folks at Standing Rock, obviously.
Yeah, and this is obviously not the first time this has happened,
right.
And it happens with low income people, low income populations, minority populations, indigenous populations. I mean, this happens all the time. It's happened all throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
The powers that be take advantage of those who they think are weak, but I think in this case particularly, the people stood up and really held the pipeline off. And if it hadn't been for this incoming administration,
right,
that pipeline would still be stopped. But as I think we all know, Trump came in and sort of snapped his fingers, and then all of a sudden, it was back on.
And everybody kind of disappeared, although they're still in our thoughts and our prayers, and of course, whatever remains of the sacred land. And the problems with the water will continue. We can make a lot of correlations, like even with Flint, Michigan, if you will, a very poor populated area where they don't have a lot of authority nor power. Obviously, nobody worries about the water. Nick, you and I could talk probably for hours, and I'm sure someday we will, because I know it's difficult. You're a busy man. But let's make a correlation between that Dakota pipeline now and something happening locally. You and I talked about this over a year ago, where the Sunoco Logistics came through the Gearhart property locally in Huntingdon County. Obviously, that's still a bugaboo. It's still a problem because the Gearharts, quite frankly, got smacked in the face when it gets right down to it. And there again, government powers and, of course, money talks volumes. Your feeling on that, and where's that heading?
Well, just to give you sort of an update, last year they came through and they cut almost all the trees. A few people were sitting in the trees, so a few of the old white pines were saved. And then, given that they saved the white pines, they actually started up their own protest camp called Camp White Pine out there, and so what's happening now is they're actually, laying the pipeline, and construction is drawing nearer, and they have tree sitters up in the trees again. So there's going to be basically a confrontation between law enforcement and the tree sitters very soon. But this, to talk about the sort of injustice of the whole thing is, to remind everybody, the issue, at least legally, comes down to the eminent domain issue. And, in order to claim land for eminent domain, you must be a public utility. Well, Sunoco was granted public utility status for previous projects.
Right.
But their role as a company has changed, particularly with this pipeline, because in order to be a public utility, you must be providing something for the people, that you're taking the land from.
Mm-hmm.
And all the NGLs, the natural gas liquids that are going through these pipes, are being transported to the Marcus Hook refinery near Philadelphia and then being shipped abroad.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
They're really not technically a public utility.
So there's resources.
They're not providing any service for us.
Right.
So
yeah.
They've basically bullied people out of their land in order to, for their own private gain.
Yeah, and
the slogan is "No eminent domain for private gain."
Right, and that is difficult at best whenever you look at that situation there with the Gerhardts, of course, losing some of their property. Because of that, we still have people sitting in the trees. But let's make a correlation now. That same pipeline, I understand, is going underneath Racetown Lake?
That's right.
What's happening with that?
It's going underneath the lake. There are already two other pipelines going underneath the lake. One of which is the Texas Eastern Pipeline, which some of you may not know this, or some of you may remember this. Last year in Westmoreland, there was a pipeline explosion. The guy got serious burns, over 75% of his body, destroyed his home.
Right.
That Texas Eastern Pipeline runs underneath the lake. So we already have aging, dangerous infrastructure already running under the lake, and we're adding more pipelines.
Wow.
Mariner East 2 is a dual pipeline. There are two pipelines that they're laying under there.
Yeah.
And on that note, these pipelines, they say, all the spokespeople from Sunoco say, oh, we're using the latest technology. These things are safe. And well, Sunoco particularly has one of the worst track records. They have, they have several violations per year.
Right.
You remember last year, 55,000 gallons of gas leaked into the Susquehanna.
Right.
And the Mariner East 1, which just went into operation a year and a half ago, they've, supposedly using this modern technology, they've already had several leaks, one or two of which they didn't even know about.
Right.
Just some local folks noticed that they noticed the leak. Sunoco themselves, they didn't even know that their new up to date pipe was even leaking. So it's these things, and just a couple weeks ago, a couple guys died from a pipeline explosion. I mean, these they say how safe and reliable these things are. It's totally false.
Well, listen, if these are so,
and the Gerhardt house is within the blast zone.
Oh, really?
If there's an explosion on that pipeline,
yeah,
in the vicinity of their house, I mean, that the two guys just a couple weeks ago, they're dead.
Well, could the thinking be, well, we're those large corporations, so we lose a few people, have a couple of casualties, but for the good of America, for the good of all, for the good of the bottom line, so what, we lose a few people? I mean, that's what it seems like.
That's what it seems like, and you say for the good of America. It's not, Sunoco is not America, though. Sunoco is a private for-profit company.
Thank you, and they're also trading stock.
So it benefits few Americans. What they do.
Well, let me ask you this. I don't know if you're aware, even further down east, and as we head towards Marcus Hook, where all this will be, of course, refined and distributed, there are schools down there that are planning. Believe it or not, they're planning like emergency exits. Now, why would you even have to plan something like that if there's no problem here. We've got the best technology, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, obviously there's a concern, and it's coming right through our neighborhood, and it's taking land from people that we know.
And there are a lot of people down there really upset about that. But it also begs the question, why are they running a pipeline near a school? Which really draws attention to the fact that they just don't care. They'll put their pipeline in wherever they please. It's really distressing, and that's why some people are standing up. And the Gerhardts have caught a lot of flack for that, which truly, I just, I don't understand. I mean, I think that's a very American thing to do, is stand up for yourself and your rights.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this, because I don't know how to, and I probably should not be looking for a label. I just went on the air earlier and said, Nick Miller, good guy. Okay? But listen, what is your job is, I mean, you're very active in the community. Obviously, you speak up when others are kind of kowtowing and, of course, backing down. What kind of pushback have you gotten? I mean, seriously, is there anybody pissing with you? I mean, anybody that we need to take care of here, Nick?
No,
because we can do that.
I personally, I mean, the Gerhardts have met a lot of resistance, and I'm certainly not the only one speaking up. There are a lot of people out at these borough council meetings speaking up very eloquently, and
Right.
So it's not just me, but I haven't really directly received too much pushback. I mean, in those moments you have people in the crowd that
Right.
make comments or whatever, and but it's nothing like the Gerhardt. The Gerhardts are receiving death threats.
Oh my God.
So I haven't received anything like that. So
Yeah.
I've been fairly untouched by any negative pushback, which is encouraging to me. But
Yeah.
but maybe that's maybe part of that might be though because maybe I am seen as a public servant. I help run the community garden, and
Right. We're going to talk about that real quick.
And to put a label on me, if you want to label me, I'm a farmer, really. I mean, that's
Okay. I appreciate
that's my main thing. And a farmer musician. I'm a high school soccer coach. And,
Okay. Hey, listen.
Thankfully, people have been pretty supportive, is what I wanted to say.
And we appreciate that because you are a good guy. I was trying to look at a label earlier this morning. I was going to call him Nick Miller, the Conflict Resolution King. But, okay,
Right.
I'll let that go for now. But listen, Nick, I don't know you that well. We've met from time to time. We are going to talk about the community garden. And, of course, don't forget Farmers Market tomorrow, every Thursday. But listen, this all comes from somebody. This might come from your parents. I mean, this comes from your growth and development. I mean, where does the activism come from? Where is it that you learned that I need to stand up and help those who are less fortunate than me? That had to come from somewhere. Where is that?
I'd say initially, definitely my parents. My mom was always a really staunch environmentalist.
Yeah.
I was the only kid that was in the cafeteria with a packed lunch with like cloth napkins and
Wow.
nothing throwaway. Everything was recyclable.
Yeah.
And my dad, of course, was a local doctor and really cared for people.
Right.
And so I guess those two things. My mom really stood up for herself and her beliefs, while my dad was a really caring individual. And I think my parents definitely influenced me in that regard. But then when I went to university, of Vermont up in Burlington, and I became an environmental studies major, and the faculty up there is really tremendous, and I learned a lot from them, and they really encouraged my activism, basically.
Yeah. Cool.
So
cool. That is
that's
so
where
cool.
that comes from.
All right. Well, from my generation, I'm sure your parents are probably from that generation as well, kids of the 60s and 70s, and we saw a lot happen. I just want to salute them because, again, it obviously they left us a piece of them, and, of course, the legacy continues through Nick Miller. But, Nick, I got to believe you're saying your mom being an environmentalist, Silent Spring, written by Rachel Carson, a book that I've read many times. I mean, she warned us way back in the 50s and 60s that some of this was to come, and here we are today. Still fighting those same battles. But let's kick on this just for a second because this is important too. Community garden, the impetus for that, why we have a community garden, and of course that great farmers market that you guys have over there at Portstown Park. Talk a little bit about that and what's happening with the community garden. I see you've expanded that, and farmers market is happening as well.
Yeah. Our second farmers market is this Thursday. We're there every Thursday through October from noon to 5, just to put that little plug in. And we actually started we have a board now for the farmers markets. It's called the Huntingdon County Local Food Association.
Right.
And we started a Mount Union farmers market as well, which will be every Friday from 11:30 to 3:30.
Cool.
Over there in Mount Union. But anyhow, but the community garden basically came out of. It was sort of dreamed up by Kati Soman and a few people from the Kiwanis a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been Ryan Gibbon and I had been interested in doing a similar project, and so we sort of took the reins and expanded last year. And the need for the community garden really is, primarily for me, it's educational. It's getting people outdoors, doing something for the community, learning how to be self-sufficient, and which that in and of itself I think is really important. For us to to take things into our own hands, learn how to fix things, learn how to grow things, build things. I think those kind of skills a lot of us have lost over time, and in moving forward, basically as a species, I think we need to become again more sustainable, in our own lives, and so I think that kind of education is invaluable.
Well, I grew up in a period of time when we actually were more sustainable. We had our own chickens, even in the burrow, and we had outhouses along the fringes. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we had spring well water. That throws me back, Nick, to the days of, last Monday we had a power outage. Some people just went basically crazy because they weren't ready.
Yeah, I loved it. I love it when the power goes out.
I bet.
I have a couple solar lights and, candles and stuff. I feel like I'm back in time. I often really feel like I really belong to a different time. I'd prefer to be riding around on horseback.
Hey, you were probably, I don't know what your beliefs are. You could have been reincarnated. That's probably what I liked about you, man. I've been there before, and then I met this guy that came forward with me, and here we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're throwbacks to the old days.
Yeah, man. But speaking about the old days, I think we've really lost a lot of the satisfaction that we get from doing things for ourselves. A lot of us go to jobs that we don't really like, and to pay bills that we don't want to pay, and when you take your life into your own hands and start actually growing your own food and doing even fixing your own car, doing stuff like that. I mean, it's so satisfying, and I feel like America is just. It's over medicated too. A lot of people are depressed, and I think a lot of that can be fixed just by changing your lifestyle, changing your diet, being more active.
Right.
Because I get hooked on work. I become a workaholic during the growing season. I just can't stop working because it feels so good to be outside.
Yes, sir.
Doing stuff for the community. Growing food. It's but to get back to the community garden, the other need is that. We really enjoy to produce really quality local produce to share with low income people in the community, because you don't typically get a fresh tomato or fresh produce at say the drop-in center which
yes, sir.
Are you running the drop-in center now? Is that what you do?
I'm the chairman of the drop-in center, and we've been making some inroads here the last couple of months since I've been in that seat. And I just wanted to make mention, thank you very much for the produce which you provide us, because that's the key thing. You're right. How many people live in urban areas that can't even get to farm fresh produce, who buy that stuff in the store? And I got to be quite honest, we try to tell our clients, who are our consumers, if you will, Nick, that GMOs. Now, they really don't understand that, but I'm telling them to be very cognizant of what they put into their bodies. And we really appreciate all the help that you've given us through the community garden. And we're going to go a step further. We want them to get active in the garden as well, so they can kind of give back to the community. So we seriously thank you for that. Now, tell us about the farmers market, though, because that happens every Thursday in the summer, and I've had a chance to stop by and meet some really great people. You've got people coming in from all over the area.
Yeah, it's definitely a community event. I mean, I really enjoy just to go down there and chat with people. Yeah. And we have our regulars, but we meet a lot of people from around the state who come to visit the lake. Yeah. Which then that ties into the whole pipeline thing. That pipeline is being cut. Sorry to get off course a little bit.
No, that's all right.
If you've driven out to the lake recently, Have you been out there recently?
No, I haven't been out there recently, but
I
I saw the news reports of them tearing up the land there along the shoreline. I saw the day that you guys were out there, I think a couple of Sundays ago, and having that meeting. And I wanted to be there, but I was at a Juneteenth meeting at the same time. But we're going to head out there and take a look at that, maybe talk to some of the tourists once they start coming in around Memorial Day. But you know what? Here again, Nick, historically, I grew up in Huntingdon. I left 45 years, radio and broadcasting, came back last year. You know, there are people still kind of pissed off over the eminent domain situation, how the lake got there. But there was nobody like a Nick Miller back then shouting loud enough to stop it. See? So
I bet there was.
There probably were.
I bet people were pretty aggravated about that.
Well, you know, they took their homes. Yeah, they took their homes in the cottages. But having said that, here we are. History kind of repeats itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Man.
Again and again and again. You know, we see the same human dramas happen all throughout history. You know, the people who have money and power take land and destroy people's lives. I mean, that's an unfortunate human dilemma that we see happen time and time again.
Listen, I really want to spend some time with you someday. I know you're busy. Even if I got to catch you on the weekend, we're going to sit down, record a conversation. I want people to know a little bit more about you. I want to talk about some of these issues in Huntingdon, our backyard, because that's what we're here for. The Air Network, of course, moving from Johnstown now to Huntingdon, my hometown. I consider it one of the coolest towns in America, Nick. Huntingdon, Pennsylvania. Not only that, but hey, listen, we're putting this Community FM 94.1 on the air. Once we get the transmitter stabilized, it's going to be a community station. So I want you to come on.
Excellent.
I want you to have your own show, and we'll talk about that. You probably know people that, hey, you love music, Nick. You're involved in that.
Yep.
We've got the Folk College coming up in May, you know, and I'm going to hang out there, try to get some interviews, but I want people to do their own shows. So let's talk about...
That'd be great. Yeah, cool.
Let's do a half-hour show or an hour show with Nick on either farming. Maybe you can give us some tips on sustainable energy. Hey, listen, I still believe that with all the resources we have, meaning the water and the sun, man, we don't need all this other crap that's going to kill us.
Oh, thank you for touching on that.
What do you think?
I really wanted to mention that earlier, and there was something nagging at me. I was like, there's one point that I really wanted to make. And
make that point. Go ahead.
We really need to transition from oil and gas and, you know, all the fossil fuel industry,
the dead
to
fossils.
Renewables. I mean, that's just the oil industry, the oil and gas industry is a dinosaur. We need to put that dinosaur in a museum. I mean, it's just the way everything's extracted, all the carbon that goes up into the atmosphere, you know, the eminent domain stuff. I mean, it's just, it's outrageous. We have the technology to implement renewable energy. And that's, anyone with vision would realize that that's going to create jobs.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
You know, and save lives.
Well,
you know,
listen. I was going to say, we had a situation in the Johnstown region where for years Gamesa was making those windmills and the turbines. And, you know, I mean, they weren't being subsidized by the government. Now, ExxonMobil, they're still getting money from the government to do whatever it is they do, and then turn around and sell us these dead fossils. You know what I'm saying? When, in fact, we have resources that replenish every day. Water, wind, sun. It's like, come on, where do you think the problem is?
Free energy.
Free energy. Where is the problem with America embracing that whole idea?
The problem is that oil and gas is such a huge industry. That's the problem. Is that, you know, like you said earlier, money talks. Money basically drives a lot of legislation, and you look at who our Secretary of State is right now. ExxonMobil himself.
Tillerson.
I mean, he was a career Exxon employee and then became the CEO. I mean, so Exxon literally is our Secretary of State. So, I mean,
I'm telling
you. Now, I mean, the thing with this new administration is that now it's completely transparent that that big companies run the show. You know, in days past, you know, all those people were sort of doing their lobbying thing and pulling the strings behind the scenes. But now it's out there in the open for all to see.
And it's so transparent, like you said.
We need to wake up.
Yeah, what is it that people don't get, Nick? I mean, with this new administration, see, and I'm not going to sit here because, you know, the headline this morning, obviously, is something that is an eye-opener in itself when it comes to what happened yesterday in D.C., but I wanted Nick Miller on because I'm having problems getting you on, so finally we get you on for a little time. But I got to tell you, the other story that we're going to touch on today is that whole thing with the FBI and Comey and Trump, and it's like, my God, why do we even have to talk about that? That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know? And like you said, you got Tillerson basically in charge of what happens energy-wise throughout the America, and there's a guy who was basically, well, his whole career was getting money from stockholders or stakeholders, if you will. And then who knows? He could turn around and become a lobbyist in a few years, making billions. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, I hear some chickens in the background. Or you have free-range chickens or something?
I do, yeah. I have chickens that roam all over the property. They actually... they provide eggs, but they also provide tick control. So that's something I recommend for people who've been picking up ticks even in their backyard. You know, even with my yard under control, the grass mowed and everything. Before I got the chickens, I was picking up ticks just walking out to my car, and I don't pick up ticks anymore because they, the chickens, they roam all day and they're constantly eating bugs.
Oh, see, and that's important because you know what? How many of my friends? I just got a call from a friend of mine in Johnstown. He's been ill. Found out the guy has Lyme disease.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
it's a serious disease that's affecting a lot of people.
Oh man, that's incredible. I heard the chickens, and I never knew that they would take care of and eradicate the ticks as well.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, my brother and I are going to have to get a couple of chickens.
They do a really good job of. You watch them. They're just constantly all day roaming around, just pecking at the ground. They pick up all the bugs.
Man, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Nick? I could spend another hour with you, and we probably will at some given time. And I want you to have your own show too, and you and I will sit down when we're able. One of my problems is, Nick, I got to be quite honest. I'm caring for a brother of mine, and he's going through rehab, and I got to make sure we get all that business taken care of. So I only get into town a few days a week, but we're putting this community FM on the air. We've been on the air. Matter of fact, last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, Mayfest, we were sitting over there at the drop-in center, live broadcast all day from 8 a.m., actually 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Community FM 94.1, plus the Air Network. And I was able to go to your stage live. And that's when I was walking around town because I went and got Gabe Green and Nick Miller live on stage, and it went out all over the world.
Nice.
Thanks
for doing that.
Well, that was cool. I talked to Dave ahead of time, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to thank you, too, Greg, for, doing what you do at the drop-in center and, with the radio and,
yeah.
This I think the community radio station idea is...
We got to make it happen.
Is really excellent, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, we could...
And
go ahead.
That's what we really want to do with Re-Envision Huntingdon, through the community garden is...
Well,
really
I'll tell you...
Bring people together.
Yes, sir.
And,
yep. And the impetus...
In the benefit of the community.
And the impetus for the radio station, I won't go there too long, but I came down and met with one of the doctors at Juniata College about 4 years ago, and I said, why don't you utilize your radio station for blah, blah, blah? And they were like, we have a radio station? I'm like, yes, you do. I started there in 1970 as a kid in high school. Well, now it's on FM. So they didn't really want the community there, so I said, well, guess what? We'll put our own on the air, and we'll utilize it. We'll get people on who are artisans, people that know music. They can go ahead and play their favorite music. They can do talk shows. That's what it's going to be about, Nick. So we'll meet with you and Ryan, and even if we have to go live, let's say you're out doing a gig somewhere some night doing acoustic, let's go there live and kind of just put it out there all over the world. You know what I mean? And promote Huntingdon. Yeah, we'll promote Huntingdon. Hey, listen, as we wrap this up, anything you want to kind of summarize, anything that you really want to get out there today to our audience and talk about, something that they need to know? Are you promoting anything coming up?
I'm trying to think, just off the top of my head, it's just the farmers market and it's the community garden. We have community garden sessions every Tuesday night from 5:30 to about 7 or 7:30. Depends on how much work we have, and anyone's welcome to come up. And the more we expand the garden, like you said, we expanded to the other side of the plot this year, so we're growing a lot more produce. So therefore, we need a lot more help. But the goal with that really is to push to have even more community gardens. It'd be nice to have gardens all over town. But we need to get people on board and train people how to teach people how to grow stuff so that we can expand our local food initiative.
Okay. All right. Well,
so
we'll help you.
That was one thing I wanted to touch on. But then the other thing I wanted to say is, you mentioned earlier, Huntingdon is a really great place to live, and and I've lived all over the world. I spent a couple years in India, Thailand. I lived in England, Wales.
Wow.
I went to school up in Vermont, which they're all really beautiful, amazing places, but yet I still come back here. I've been out in the world, and yet, there's a reason why I come back here, and this is a great little town.
Yeah.
And, but we really I think we all need to become more active and really, sort of get to know each other a little bit better. And I think that happens through community action, through things like, like your community radio show and through the community garden, and just getting out and doing stuff for other people.
Right.
So.
Well, we'll do what we can to help promote everything Huntingdon. Anything you want to do, Nick, like I said, we'll talk about it. We'll sit down. We'll map it out, just like you've done in your other initiatives. You know what I'm saying? So I'm here to help, and we're here to communicate and promote. And so you and I will get together soon, I'm sure. But I really appreciate your time today. So listen, you're a busy man. You're probably there gardening right now as you're talking to me. What do you?
I actually am puttering. I am literally puttering around the garden.
I kind of figured that. Yeah. Hey, but anyhow,
there's always something. The work never ends when you're a farmer, but it's a great life, man. I'll tell you what.
Hey, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate everything you do, Nick. So I tell you what, we are going to work together, of course. And all I can do is tell you, man, I'm looking forward to it. So be patient with me. I know it's kind of difficult as I try to get reacclimated, if you will, back to Huntingdon. But we're home now, man. So all I can do is look for bigger and better things. And really want to say it's good to know somebody like you is in town and you've got our back. Nick Miller, thanks again, buddy.
Hey, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day, my man. I'll be talking to you soon, okay?
You too. It's a beautiful day. Everyone out there, have a good day as well.
All right.
Enjoy the sun.
Do the same. Thank you, Nick.
All right.
It's the Greg Banks Show on the airnetwork.net, Community FM 94.1. Glad to have you along on this good-looking Wednesday.